we're just gonna start. We're just gonna start.
Hello, I'm Stephen Carver, and I go by the name of SaberSpark on YouTube. For the sake of transparency, I will be on camera for this video. I also have some notes over here I will be referencing for this response. Now, some of you may have seen the recent 2-hour video by the YouTuber I Live KimPossible a lot. Putting aside what it was, which we'll talk about here in a moment, this video included her making some significant and sweeping accusations involving me. Most of the comments I saw on the original upload indicated that many people saw this video for what it was, clout chasing, and it threw out very severe allegations in a really callous and reckless way.
He's right on the money. Whether he should be approaching the criticism of KP in that way is probably a little bit too abrasive. He's coming at it a little bit too hard himself, which I know is probably going to turn a lot of people away. But I understand why he's doing it. I mean, he's just correct. The common opinion on KP's execution of this stuff is that she made a lot of like sweeping allegations with very little to substantiate them. And the one allegation that was the least substantiated, more specifically, were the ones against SaberSpark. And she admitted on a live stream in an interview that she literally had no evidence to even push these allegations besides vibes.
Appreciate that people out there are willing to question such things, and more importantly, share my sentiment that this is not the way things should be done. What was said was untrue, and it's disappointing to see people trying to build themselves up by tearing others down. With that in mind, this is my response to recent allegations against me from the Twitter account BronyFandont and the YouTuber I Live KimPossible a lot. Before I begin,
I already know that this video is going to get a significant amount of views. This will probably be the kill shot for like KP, and hopefully maybe even BronyFandont, because I did a lot of digging on BronyFandont independently outside of my coverage. And I've come to, I want to say, a reasonable conclusion that BronyFandont in their own right is an absolute moron that shouldn't be taken seriously.
I want to give a content warning for the following things on screen. Folks, this is a very serious video, so please continue watching it at your own discretion. To be clear, the accusation that I sexually assaulted someone is completely false, and I feel disgusted that I even have to say that. I've had sexual partners before in the past, but we have always abided by enthusiastic and reciprocated consent.
Okay, so already immediately dispelling the narrative, right, that it could have been coercive or that implied consent wasn't present. And it's interesting that he's using, like, you know, the same words that were utilized in KimPossible's video, you know, using the sort of enthusiastic and reciprocated consent wordage. I mean, I understand why he's doing it, but he should just like, you know, put it bluntly and say that the allegations don't hold water and that this individual did consent in this moment, rather than, like, you know, try to play by their rules. But I understand why he's doing it.
The actual reality of the situation appears to be the result of what I believe to be a hit piece. From what I've seen, it seems that KP and a person by the username of BronyFandont were working together to push this story, and I have evidence to prove that. But more than that,
I was about to say too, is like there's a lot of circumstantial evidence, as well as, you know, direct testimony that suggests that this is a hit piece, right? The way that they hyped up the video, the way that they hyped up the testimony, the way that they were not refuting or dispelling any potential that these things may be coming from a negative place or from a mental place where it's vindictive in a way, right? There's just a lot of like information to suggest that these individuals were not obviously, but were colluding to tie in all of these negative allegations between all of these people together to make them all as like impactful as possible, to undermine these people's careers or to like take a shot at their reputation, to undermine their characters. So I think he's right to say that. And if he has like additional evidence, I'm going to love seeing it.
What KP's video actually does is extremely dangerous. It hurts those who are truly victims out there. And this is not how you do things when it comes to people's lives. The following section will be about I Live KimPossible a lot, my history with her, and what appears to be her attempt to falsely accuse me for her own gain. To make it easy, I will be referring to her as KP for the remainder of this video. I met KP in 2014. We lived in the same state and eventually became friends. This was mainly because we shared common interests, as we were both part of the BronyFandom and were both YouTubers as well. She came to me asking for advice on her videos and connections to go to conventions. At the end of 2014, I started a new job and entered a new relationship with someone. For the next 5 months, I was extremely busy. KP would occasionally reach out to me, but I did not have time to hang with her. It was nothing personal, and we naturally drifted apart. 8 years passed, and in August of 2023, a friend of mine messaged me on KP's behalf. He told me that according to KP, one of the editors...
Just a heads up, and I don't have much of the details here, but I figure I'd pass it on since you'll probably hear about it soon. KP hit me up saying that, like, aficionados, Chris, like, did some stupid shit or something about, like, flexing, telling stories about how he jerked off with her panties at a con a few years back or something. I don't know all the details, and frankly, I don't want to, but she's gonna reach out to everyone that he works for and give them a few days to distance themselves before putting him on blast. Just so you're aware, that's on its way. No idea what'll actually go down, but there you go. Well, I guess that explains all of these people that, you know, all of these people that they have in common that has been, like, heavily suggested and hinted at, and, you know, in like this sphere of people, in this friend group or group of people
on my team allegedly did something inappropriate.
She's a scorned lover? Not from what we know yet.
To her back in 2015. I immediately addressed this with my editor, and he told me that the matter was settled between him.
I see. Yeah, so this all ties to this individual known as Chris. You did. Payment should be inbound here soon, but I wanted to run a question by you. I had someone approach me here on a Discord with a matter that allegedly involved you and KP in some deviant behavior that apparently you bragged about. I don't think these things lightly with people I work with, but I don't take these things lightly with people I work with, but I also don't want to automatically believe a potential rumor. Is there any validity to these claims? That's something I need to know about with the people I employ. I hope you see where I'm coming from with this question. You know, it's interesting. It's interesting too, because a lot of people recently have been saying, oh, SaberSpark defended a pedophile, so surely he must be guilty, right? That's like an insane line of logic that people are genuinely choosing to align with, which is completely idiotic, to say the least, right? I could say significantly worse things about that line of logic, but here we can see that that SaberSpark is obviously very apprehensive about like any potential degenerate behavior that these individuals might be engaging in. At least behind the scenes, he is, as we can see from these like, you know, DMs. So even if you did want to claim as an argument that SaberSpark defended a pedophile, so he should be labeled as a sexual abuser, even if you did want to use that idiotic logic, as we can see here, that's not even an accurate representation of his character. KB and I resolved that issue a few days ago, actually. So everything is okay then, if you don't mind me asking? Not that it's my business to know details, but just making sure all is good and on the level with the people who work with me and the team. Everything's fine now, yes. It was resolved amicably. He wouldn't want me to divulge anything. That's all right. Her privacy is important. Understood. Doing my part to be vigilant with my own people. Glad you're all resolved. See, so look, see, if he had a reason to cut away anybody who was known for doing any like malicious interaction, it appears that he would actually take the countermeasures to like avoid these individuals, right? And an argument that needs to be presented here is that even though SaberSpark may have defended an alleged pedophile, right, an alleged pedophile back in the day, at the time, he could have just defended the individual because he didn't believe the allegations to be true, which is a completely normal thing to do, right? You know, innocent until proven guilty. So that's actually not indicative of SaberSpark, you know, of SaberSpark's character, or indicative of any action that he might take or commit against any individual.
Him and KP. I took his word on that and assumed that KP would reach out to me directly if that was not the case. On November 12th, 2024.
Is this response good so far? I mean, it's coming off really strong, and it's setting like a lot of like building blocks, a lot of foundations. But it hasn't, like in the first 3 minutes, it hasn't dispelled anything yet, but it's too early to like say anything. It is definitely way too early to say anything, to be, you know, explicit or expressly clear. Imagine taking sexual harassment so seriously that the first thing you do is try to make the victim sign an NDA. Absolutely fuck EA Games and SaberSpark apparently for keeping Chris hired. It's a poor look. Video coming soon. Yeah, so it appears that KP definitely had like a vindictive bone and wanted to, like, you know, take a shot against these people from what we're seeing. right? I mean, if you guys were to look at my previous coverage, I'm not gonna go too in depth because I don't want to make this too long I don't want to make this too long. But all of the signs are there. All of the signs are there. Like in a previous interview with an individual known as like Lord Slug, if I recall correctly, AP literally said that she believes the allegations were true because it sounded like something that SaberSpark would do based on his previous behavior, right? So these people didn't think twice about platforming allegations that may have potentially been coming from a place of malice or vindictiveness on their own. They just went full fucking send because they disliked the guy. And it appears that this vindictive feeling or this scorned feeling has been there for quite a while.
KP made a tweet where she was upset that Chris was still working on my projects. She then posted, "Video coming soon." On January 6, 2025, KP emailed me demanding I take action due to Chris and what she claimed.
Good afternoon, Stephen. This email is your requested private communication regarding Chris and the overall sexual harassment situation that he has caused. Our full incident report can be found here if needed. Since you publicly displayed confusion at best about my attempted communication with you prior to this point, below are screenshots of my conversation with Blank, aka the French/employees I passed Chris information to. The conversation with Blank specifically mentions a possible stalling change through Blank based on Chris' actions. And I honestly cannot fathom a situation where there would be that drastic of an employee change or discussion without your knowledge. Screenshots can be found here, here, and here. I do not appreciate you calling me a liar publicly. I would like some form of apology, or some form of public apology. Additionally, your public statement states that you know the confrontation between me and Chris was recorded as a matter of community safety. Combined with your email interaction with DA Games leads me to believe that unless there was some major miscommunication, you were aware of the situation that you have chosen an action. You will have the choice to either hold Chris accountable, i.e. firing him with proof, or keep him on staff. Should you choose the former, please communicate this to me as soon as possible to avoid any miscommunication, any public statements, list information present after. So she was literally threatening the guy. She was literally threatening it, like she was making an ultimatum. This is literally an ultimatum. You either fire him with the proof that I provided, but as we know, KP's standard of evidence is completely dog shit, completely garbage, and she was really hoping that SaberSpark would fire this guy off of, potentially low evidential or allegations based on like very, very low standard of evidence. This reeks to me of an individual that is just completely vindictive. Just wants to take the revenge shot. That's what this smells to me like. And don't get me wrong, I'm going to be charitable. There's always the possibility that there was some sort of foul play here, right? But given like the repeated pattern of behavior with KP being as vindictive as she is and wanting things done her way because of like these personal gripes, it's very hard to see it in any other way but a reputational hit job or hit piece. If you believe this is only a one-time incident, this document link below has logged some of Chris' other inappropriate behavior, including but not limited to making bestiality jokes to someone he knew was a minor, the use of the N-word, and Nazi imagery with himself and will of DA Games. You can find more information on page 4 and 29 of this document. I have been given clearance to show unedited screenshots of the bestiality incident if requested. I have been clearly communicate that going forward. I have no desire to get into internet squabble with you, so let's please work this out as adults. I mean, I'll give her credit for attempting to resolve this privately, but it's very obvious to me that she has like her own personal qualms that she wanted like SaberSpark to act by, or that she wanted to she had like her own standards that she wanted to SaberSpark to uphold. Granted, at the end of the day, right, bestiality jokes, Nazi imagery, and all of this garbage, while it is gross, while it can make you have an emotional response, right? While it can elicit some sort of like negative reaction, that like, in the grand scheme of things, that is hardly comparable to like sexual assault or rape. That is hardly comparable. To like hold those up to the same standards and attempt to get somebody fired over something like that, when this is like, a private employee for the most part, until he was like outed. But who is she to like, hold SaberSpark accountable for the actions of another individual.
He did nearly 10 years ago. Due to a leaked call between Chris and KP, they recalled the full story. Chris made a sex joke in regards to KP, and she found out about it many years later. What shocked me was when I was informed this call was recorded without Chris's knowledge or consent. Chris profusely begged for forgiveness at the end of the call, and it looked like both KP and Chris ended on amicable terms, which matches what I was told by Chris when I initially confronted him about the situation.
Yeah, Chris, you want to say anything?
I guess I'd go first, yeah.
Go for it.
All right. Well, first, I think it's the obvious thing is one, just want to profusely apologize for that terrible fucking thing I did.
Mm-hmm.
And that, God, was an absolute horrible person so many years ago. And you didn't deserve that. So...
All right. So I don't really have anything else that I feel comfortable saying.
Dude, this is so gross. I mean, was your whole when it comes to situations like these, when you're trying to like hold somebody accountable, isn't the accountability to like rectify the wrongdoing? Is an apology not enough for KP? Did she actually just want to like ruin this person's life?
At this point,
I mean, that just goes to show. That just goes to show, like, you know, that somebody like KP is willing to go the extra mile over being like slight, you know, even slighted in the smallest way.
But you know, I'll just leave with good luck and may God have mercy on your soul. And you know, this too shall pass. Okay, all those things. So yeah, okay.
Thank you.
All right. Well, have a good night. And I think I'm going to limit my communication with you for obvious reasons, but
no, that's perfectly reasonable, and I understand.
In addition, after listening to this call,
okay, look, while there might obviously be some very like, because don't get me wrong, right? I'm obviously not going to like, you know, to avoid the elephant in the room. While there might be some like very heinous allegations being pushed against Chris himself, right? When it comes from somebody who's like personally motivated or has a vendetta like KP, they should not be the ones to try to like platform those allegations and bring them forward, because there's obviously going to be a conflict of interest or a bias there. So it's already going to like muddy the waters. This person is already going to have tunnel vision expectation. They're going to want to have a very specific outcome from their actions or the way they go about exposing this guy.
It appears KP was asking Chris intrusive questions in order to find more information about me.
Okay, so, which is a very shady thing to do, by the way. If you're going to interview somebody, you shouldn't be asking, like, leading questions to get them to say something that they typically wouldn't.
So
You want to be clear and transparent with your, I want to say, intentions. I mean, every step of the way, these people seem like incredibly shady, deceptive individuals. Very conniving.
as far as your relationship with Saber, like, is it, like, just so I know, is it something?
Yeah, and it's okay to have a bias, but don't let that bias overwhelm objectivity and facts. But the thing is, the problem here as well, a very big problem that needs to be, like, understood as well, is that that's exactly what occurred with KP. When she released the video, and she slathered the SaberSpark allegations towards the end of the video just to, like, you know, take a shot at SaberSpark as well. Again, when you cross-analyze that with the Lord Sluck interview, obviously, she let her bias absolutely cloud her judgment and objectivity, right? She wasn't impartial. She literally pushed these allegations because, yeah, in her mind, it sounded like something SaberSpark would do. So she was like, fuck it, I'll platform these allegations anyways, with no due diligence, with no, regard for the truth, right? With no concern about whether these allegations were real or not. She just believed them at face value with no evidence. Her own words, by the way. Her own words.
Are you guys, like, friendly, or does he just give you kind of contract work and that's it?
I mean, I guess you could say it's both, but I don't have, like, long conversations with him because he's so busy. The most I ever see him is at conventions, if he happens to be at the same one.
Okay, so, you know, you're not in an environment where this would have come up anyway.
Never.
So he would probably be unaware.
Never. He's 100% unaware. Like, again, I can't stress enough is that in the times I ever told the story, it was, as you described it, locker room talk with a very small amount of people in a private call. I never told it publicly, and I never, ever told it to anyone like SaberSpark.
As far as Chris goes, we took the situation seriously from the very beginning. The joke was inappropriate, but it was told nearly 10 years ago. He profusely apologized to me as well and admitted to his faults. I believe in the inner growth of a person and that they can change for the better.
Which is an argument that I made, by the way. Which is an argument that I made previously as well, right? So Chris obviously owned up to his own misdeeds, to his own wrongdoings, and I don't think that somebody's like, shitty behavior should haunt them forever. I don't think, like, so long as they haven't gone out of their way or have legitimately harmed anybody in a way that's permanent, in a way that that is like extremely egregious. I don't think that extreme condemnation should be something that should be cast on them, right? So let's say, for example, like the bestiality stuff. Yes, it's extremely inappropriate and gross and like absolutely indefensible. But despite how gross it is and the emotional reaction that somebody may elicit, they can always grow past that. Like, that's always something that they can grow past. Obviously, not everybody's going to be as forgiving. Not everybody's going to be able to see past that. And that's perfectly understandable. But some people are more willing, especially when it's somebody that's close to them, right? Like say for, like, let's utilize like the, the dad example. Like, let's say you found out your dad or your mom was making inappropriate jokes on the internet. Obviously, there's going to be like a level of bias there where you'd be willing to look past their actions and misdeeds. Is it gross? Can you like judge somebody for it? Absolutely. But I would imagine most people, given a situation like that, right? Given a SaberSpark situation, would probably be able to like, move past that so long as the person exhibits some sort of growth or change.
He did good work for the team. I was surprised, though, that KP thought she had the ability to dig.
Yeah, and that's another thing, too, is like, while some jokes can be considered extremely egregious, right? And some people might elicit like very strong reactions, like such as people on Twitter, right? Like, how so many people overreact at like slurs and whatnot. While some jokes may be extremely disgusting, so long as there isn't like any legitimate harm being done, right? So long as you're not like traumatizing anybody, then I would imagine that somebody's capable of growing past something like that.
Dictate who I hire and fire for my own team. On February 5th, 2025, KP emailed me again, but this time with false allegations.
Jesus. Stephen, it is clear to me that you do not wish to correspond with any direct communication despite you personally requesting so. To say I am disappointed by your behavior would be a severe understatement. So yeah, she literally did just want to like, it was literally an ultimatum. She just wanted Chris killed. She just wanted to get Chris killed by SaberSpark. You called me a liar publicly without even asking for the truth or further clarification. My understanding is that you have jerked around your employees and generally treated them with very little consideration. The horror stories I have heard about repeated employee reforms going unhonored to you. Yeah, stories you've heard that apparently you have no history of validating or doing due diligence for. So why should you be taken seriously? Shows to me how little you really care about your friends/employees. This, on top of your treatment of me when you were romantically and sexually interested in me, which I'm happy to elaborate on. Wait, so yeah, like she absolutely has a vendetta. She absolutely has a vendetta. She has like every biased reason to like come after SaberSpark and ruin his life. She has a grudge. She has a chip on her shoulder. Combined with your inquiries of hosting polygamist relationships with fangirls to employees is misogynistic, inappropriate, and disrespectful. Not just that, but she has like those types of brainworms where she can't look past her own nose. Like everything has to abide by her own moral framework, which could be completely skewed in an unrealistic perspective. It seems to me the only reason why you wanted to get involved is that your name was attached. Why would you want to be smeared by association with somebody? Why do you want to be like, you know how the internet is. If you're associated with somebody, as we have seen with the SaberSpark stuff, guilt by association is something that people very much do apply on the internet. Of course, he would want to like rectify some issues here. And you're more interested in damage control for your brand than your brand's actual integrity. Yeah. You would probably be doing the same if you had a successful channel, which you don't. I feel like we wouldn't even be having this conversation if it was not another YouTuber in your space. If I was not another YouTuber in your space. I mean, yeah, probably, because then he probably wouldn't have met you. I hope that you could be a professional about this going forward, even though, frankly, you haven't been through this entire nightmare ordeal. But clearly, that is not possible. So, yeah, she's completely stuck in her own head. She's completely stuck in her own head. She obviously has a bias.
She claimed that I had, quote, jerked around my employees and generally treated them with very little consideration. She also claimed that I was, quote, hosting polygamous relationships with fangirls, which is as ridiculous as it sounds. On February 25th, 2025, KP sent her final email to me. In it, she said, quote, to add on to this, I will fight you for the truth. Tone, your whole last email and the Twitter thread is drenched in, undermines the actual issues of the conversation on top of assuming I'm going to publish falsifiable information, end quote. However, incorrect information and hearsay was included within the release video. She also stated that the reason she messaged my members of my team instead of contacting me directly was that I, quote, triggered the shit out of her. And at the
no way. So she literally, yeah, so this was all literally just a grudge. This was all just this was literally just a grudge field hit piece. You don't have the patience or emotional bandwidth for your tone. If you don't have the patience or emotional bandwidth for something like this, then you should probably disconnect yourself from a situation like this. Slow the fuck down. Rationalize your thoughts. Come to a rational conclusion. Instead of continuing a fight that can end in a very messy display, which it ultimately did, and now we're all looking at it like the spectacle that it is. Your constant villainization, or to discuss this further with you at this point, for your own perceived direct benefit. To be blunt, you triggered the shit out of me, Steven, and I still tried multiple times to communicate with you, but ultimately was met with silence until now. You were screaming on Twitter like a child at me after months of trying to get any kind of internal word on Chris. And the information being in the public eye, and you still haven't fucking apologized for any of it. Why should he apologize to you? Realistically speaking. Because you feel entitled to it? Because you feel entitled to it? Because you felt personally wronged? Like, take a second. He's not, he's not responsible for the actions of another individual. If he had it on good authority that somebody could have changed since then, or if he had it on good faith that somebody could have changed through their act, can change past their actions over time, and has it a good authority that some of these allegations could be embellished or falsified, then why should he apologize to you? Have you not considered SaberSpark's side, his own thoughts, his own sentiments? This person is completely self-centered and vitriolic. What do you think that says about your character? On top of that, casting aspersions immediately, great fucking stuff. Only then to even be taking it seriously because I might make a video and hurt other people's reputation really shows how me being affected by all this really matters in the long run to you. Yeah, because if you feel personally affected, that doesn't mean that you have the right information or have the authority to be taking shots at people utilizing very poorly vetted information. She obviously had a vendetta. And that's why she went out of her way to do all of this, because she had this very intense grudge. Sexual harassment, use of Nazi imagery, pedophilia, fine to sweep it under the rug, just don't bring it up on Twitter. But this, all of this stuff, again, Nazi imagery, as gross as you may want to call it, who fucking cares? Boo fucking who? Worst things happens in the world. Sexual harassment, any proof? Any evidence? Any legitimate evidence? Pedophilia? Any proof? Any evidence? Can you prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that this person is legitimately a pedophile?
Me directly was that I, quote, triggered the shit out of her. And at the end
So are we still in KP? As a part of this response, yes.
Of the email, she told me to never contact her again. And following that request, I never contacted her again. At this point, I was bracing myself for a hit piece video from KP, but I never imagined she would use false sexual assault allegations against me. I also noticed this particular Twitter exchange the day following KP's final email to me. Leading up to the release of KP's video, she was telegraphing her intentions and who they were against. She advertised a video schedule, a watch party, a YouTube premiere.
All of this we already discussed about, right? It was obviously a hit piece. She obviously advertised it because she wanted this to be a kill shot.
And a slew of other posts in order to build up hype for her expose.
Yeah, she wanted this to be as hard-hitting and as damaging as possible, and even coordinated with some prominent individuals to make this as widespread and as damaging as possible. Right? Like she was eager to get this information out, which is not typically how you execute stories like these.
BronyFandont was involved too, foreshadowing the release of the video on their Twitter leading up to the release. According to KP, the anonymous story would be posted on Twitter by BronyFandont at 10 a.m., with her video premiere about my false allegations 2 hours later. What was to follow would be a video that was not just tone deaf, but dangerously reckless with the lives of others. KP has gone on record saying that the video was originally intended for DA Games, but included me and the allegations a month prior.
Yeah, so this detail is important here, right? This detail is important here. Most of the video was intended for DA Games, but this all of this information paints all of this in an entirely new light, right? We've already sort of semi-established that KP was taking was making a hit piece over a grudge, but now it's more solidified, it's more concrete. She received some last-minute information as she was working on this video against DA Games and Chris. And then as she received these unvetted sources, as we saw through, the Lord Slug conversation, which I can see he's going to include right here, she decided to tack them on at the end just to, ruin all of these people. Despite not vetting any of the information and not gathering any evidence.
To the release of the upload. The video itself was titled, "What Ruined SaberSpark in DA Games?" and was over 2 hours long. It was primarily advertised as breaking the news of my false allegations, but the section in question was only 5 minutes and 40 seconds long. According to this,
the section in question was 5 minutes and 40 seconds long. I can verify that.
Interview with KP hosted by Slug Entertainment 2, uploaded on May 5th, 2025. KP admits that the story she featured was purely hearsay and had no substantiated evidence.
So just to be as objective as possible here. So what you're saying is that basically the evidence that you were given was more personal circumstance and hearsay rather than objective evidence.
Correct. They didn't have any Skype logs or anything because of how long it was ago, and we did ask. So
were there other people that went in to verify these claims, or were there other attempts to verify the claims being made?
Not to my knowledge. I believe I don't know the history of Bonk's relationship with the victim itself. I don't know to what extent he knew about everything before the statement was prepared. But I do know that Amy was vouching for them, and that was also because I knew Amy was on or has been on the convention scenes. That's how she met.
Which again, this is not something that you should take at face value, because people may have their own biases, right? They may have been told the story in a way that makes them believe the situation, or they might be missing their own details. And some people may be skewed in the direction of, believe all victims, which, as much as I hate to say it, has turned into something incredibly toxic, because now that gives ability. It's like the slippery slope. Sure, you can believe everybody, but as soon as you start believing literally everybody without substantiated information, right? You will eventually start believing false allegations. You will eventually start believing completely falsified stories, or stories that are skewed and embellished in a way to make them appear in the worst way possible, when the reality and what occurred in those moments that are being recounted may be significantly different.
Peter knew her husband.
The video would be unlisted and eventually removed from KP's channel the same day of its premiere, following a massive public backlash against it. Apparently, based on the comments in the video, a number of the assets included and voiceover actors involved were allegedly not informed of the nature of the video being made, or had their work used without permission for video B-roll and memes. On Twitter, I was ridiculed, with many people calling me a predator. This was due to the initial sensationalized traction of BronyFandont's post. But then the post itself began
exactly.
to receive pushback due to public scrutiny over the alleged claims. Following KP's video, BronyFandont began to backpedal, claiming that they never watched the video prior to promoting KP's upload. BronyFandont
Which is incredibly reckless to do, by the way. Which should tell you everything you need to know about this complete and utter fucking moron.
Eventually throw KP under the bus in order to distance themselves from her video's backlash a few days later.
Yeah. You believe unsubstantiated allegations. Now, as more and more evidence continues to be compiled, or as more and more information continues to be compiled in regards to these situations, you can no longer hold your guns in a situation as messy as this one. So what do? You kick the ladder from underneath you, and you let other people eat KP alive to try to protect your reputation. Let it be known that this moron right here should not go on without his own accountability, okay? He is equally as dangerous as KP for going through with something as idiotic as this.
So, what does this mean? As far as BronyFandont goes, one of two things seem to be true. Either 1, they watched the video, approved it, advertised it, and now they're backpedaling because it did not go the way they wanted it to, or 2, they never watched the video in the first place, yet they still endorsed it. Either option is reckless, irresponsible, and speaks to a greater problem. By KP's own admissions, she does not like me, and I believe she
Well, yeah, we already established the the bias that she has against SaberSpark.
Holds a grudge against me after we had a falling out.
Already established.
Slug Entertainment's interview with her seems to demonstrate her malicious intent.
Already
and from
established.
the context of her video, it looks like it was done with a desire to use this drama to boost her channel's popularity. It was a hit piece, plain and simple, though she denies having a vendetta against me.
If you were to say,
no, it's incredibly obvious. It is incredibly obvious that that this was a vendetta. Given all of the information that we've seen, given all of the circumstantial evidence, seeing her tweets, seeing her promotion of the video, seeing interactions and the way that she said things, looking at all these grudges and wanting to expressly come out of the expressly come against these individuals the way that she did. This was very obviously fueled by a grudge. She obviously very much did have a vendetta.
That this is
this is a pretty good response so far, but we haven't really gotten to the meat and potatoes yet. Is he going? Can he provide any story that is more believable, or any information that can completely combat and debunk the allegations of coerced rape? Because even though it is unlikely, no, never mind. That's reckless to say. Even though the story gets increasingly less believable, right? And the skepticism keeps going higher and higher, that does not necessarily mean that nothing didn't happen, right? That does not necessarily mean that nothing didn't happen. There's always a possibility that something did happen. It's just that it becomes less and less likely that that is the case.
Something that needs to be taken with the utmost seriousness, despite no evidence. Would you believe that it would be fair for people to disregard it entirely due to the lack of actual evidence?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay. I wanted to at least ask that, given the fact that these are serious allegations that can get Saber killed, because people are crazy, and I'd rather not have someone get killed over an allegation that has not been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, that's fair.
At this point in the video, I want to talk about the Twitter account BronyFandont. This Twitter account has been purposely targeting—
Thank God. I was about to say, this idiotic moron should not go on without their own accountability.
Me for a while now. By their own words, they believe that internet justice is more effective than courtroom justice.
Wrong. Absolutely incorrect.
They seem to see themselves as judge, jury, and executioner, and launch
naive, idiotic, egotistical, hubris-filled morons like BronyFandont do not belong on the internet, is the kindest and most amicable way that I can put it. These people suck. They absolutely suck. Any individual like BronyFandont who preaches in such a moral, flaggy way, being the arbiters of what's right or wrong, are probably some of the most dangerous people on the internet, because they will push things unvetted, unverified, no substantiation, nothing to back their claims, because they feel like it's the right thing to do. But that right thing to do that they feel comes from a completely naive and skewed place that only serves to ruin people's interpretations of situations like these, which absolutely destroys the believability of victims in the future, and absolutely destroys any possible accountability that somebody may actually face for any true allegations in the future. These people should not be taken seriously.
Harassment campaigns against multiple online creators, such as Billy Bustup, Prince Whateverer, and Black Griffin. BronyFandont has on multiple occasions used falsifiable information to attack people with. According to KP's post, BronyFandont was in her Discord server, and according to this person, they were allegedly friends. On May 1st, 2025, BronyFandont shared KP's false allegations against me. After public backlash for their post, BronyFandont was constantly arguing with people in the replies. Some people asked if he suggested professional organizations to the victim prior to reaching out to KP, and he said no. Many were inquiring about Rain, and he had no idea what that was. At the time of
Rain is Rain, like, he has it linked here. I was gonna point that out. Rain is a resource center. What a complete absolute moron. Filled with their, like, you know, like a self-righteous, hubris, egotistical, head up their own ass individual that should never be taken seriously. This guy sucks.
Recording this video, the post is still up on Twitter and has not been corrected, despite being false and unsubstantiated. Finally, I want to bring up Sophie Scruggs. She is a comic artist for IDW and is on record sharing the BronyFandont account. She was friends with KP prior to the premiere of the video and even collaborated on other drama videos with her. She even makes an appearance in said video and talks to both KP and Courtney Pete. I believe that Sophie's involvement with the BronyFandont account is concerning and irresponsible. She seems to be more of a facilitator of moving parts and frequently replies to the account.
Yeah, like this person doesn't actually care about real justice or protecting victims. He only cares, or she only cares, whoever these individuals are, right? To be clear, because you can lump them all in at this point given their behavior and the way that they all, like, you know, function in a similar matter or in a similar way, right? The way that they all operate very similarly. These people don't care about victims or about protecting anybody. Anybody who pretends to care are lying to you. Any YouTuber that is, like, you know, doing this sort of, like, you know, virtue signaling bullshit are lying to you. They're lying to you. They don't actually care. All they care is about their own vindictive worldview. It's very obvious when you look at this, right? They don't care about these victims actually facing any sort of justice, or their abusers potentially being tried in a court of law, or potentially being held accountable for their actions. These people just dislike somebody for whatever reasons they may have. So when they talk about internet justice, they just want to see somebody's career ruined. Because to them, that's like the most satisfying outcome. They don't actually care. Nobody cares. Realistically, nobody cares. And you'd be hard-pressed to find anybody who actually cares. Right? These people are absolute lying frauds. It's just that most people aren't willing to be transparent about it. If they actually cared, they wouldn't be, like, you know, propping up internet justice over, like, legitimate accountability that somebody may face
with her own main accounts. At the very least, we can confirm that she shares the account and has essentially co-signed what it posts. At this point, I want to talk about the state of Twitter, but mainly the internet as a whole. I have been on Twitter since 2012, but in early 2020, I noticed that the culture of the website had begun to change.
KB completely tarnished these victims for her own gain. Absolutely true. Absolutely true.
It was more combative and antagonistic, and the website started to reward that kind of engagement. There has been an ongoing weaponization of online vigilanteism. People who adopt a shoot first and ask questions later mentality in the quest to make a name for themselves without doing their due diligence.
He's just right. He's just absolutely right. But which goes back into what I'm saying. These people don't actually care about victims. They just don't. All they care about is, upholding their own social justice and their own standards, which can be completely skewed. And at the end of the day, all of that comes from a place of selfishness and a place of being self-centered. These people want other people to be subjugated by their standards because they only want the world to work the way that would be most comfortable and most what's the word that I'm looking for here? The most comfortable and the most feasible for them, without taking into account any sorts of checks and balances. They do not care. They do not care. They are only here. They are only here to bend people and make people operate the way they want, the way they want them to, or the way they would like them to.
They would prefer to try to shape the world for what they believe the problem is, rather than actually assisting in the solution. This whole situation is a perfect example of how unqualified strangers can shoehorn their way into extremely delicate situations. Bad faith actors are rewarded for their digital tabloids and hit pieces. Without the right checks and balances, people can destroy lives with a single misinformed tweet. These aren't individuals who care about the well-being of victims, but only engagement and exploitative content. It is important to allow legitimate victims to come forward and be heard, but the way the situation was handled was incredibly irresponsible and dangerous. This entire ordeal has been the worst moment of my entire life, and it has done severe damage to me and my family. In regards to my channel, we have lost nearly 10.
Obviously, this is meant to be to be like a sympathy bait, but you could absolutely use this as a display of damages, right? And you could absolutely utilize this as a display of damages. And these are some pretty bad damages. These are some pretty extreme damages, okay? So if he wanted to sue for slander and defamation, negative 26,000 subscribers within this period, it could probably be a huge chunk to revenue. That's a lot of damage, okay?
Tens of thousands of subscribers since the release of their video. And that is with the majority of people watching her video, calling it out for its inaccuracies and its failures. There are independent projects which I supported in good faith and made genuine connections with people that have now been ruined because of these false allegations. And I believe that was the overall goal of this calculated attack against my character. Listen, I know that the internet likes to make fun of me, call me cringe, make fun of my videos, and I am totally okay with that. You can make fun of me, but I draw the line at this. I love making videos, and I've been doing it professionally since 2015. I have a family and coworkers who depend on me, and I want to take care of them. I'm not the only one who has been affected by these malicious allegations. And while I am disillusioned by these traumatic events, I am also actively exploring legal remedies in light of these false allegations.
He's going to sue? He's going to sue? These people are fucked. He's going to sue, dude. These people are absolutely screwed.
To hold these people accountable for their lies and actions. But there is far more beyond just me here. Despite the damage against my livelihood and my reputation, I am far more concerned about the reckless nature of internet justice. When people take justice into their own hands for the sake of engagement, clicks, and views, people can get hurt and it can destroy lives. There are consequences for those actions, and we have to take these matters seriously or more people will get hurt. There are actual victims of sexual assault in the world, and stuff like this detracts from those who really need the help. If you are a victim of sexual assault, there are tools you can use. File a police report. Creating a report is at least a starting point and creates a paper trail that could help others. It helps you to build a record for actual professionals to use for your aid and your own recovery. If you are a victim, I highly suggest going to Rain's description down below. People, we have got to be better than this.
Okay. So I'm pretty sure that's where his response ends. Final conclusions. The response is overall good as a commentary against reckless allegations and reckless internet vigilantes, right? However, he still hasn't done much to dispel the allegations, right? He doesn't really talk about the allegations throughout this entire video, which is a bit of which is a big negative to me. But at the same time, it's incredibly difficult. It is incredibly difficult to disprove a negative. It is incredibly difficult to disprove a negative. So even if he could try to like argue it in any way, it would literally just be he said, she said. So it's not like it even matters. I would have liked for him to like, you know, give his own side of events, like recount his own story, which is kind of like, it's kind of a red flag to me. But again, I wouldn't be able to like, you know, I wouldn't be able to expect him to given the circumstances, right? Because even in the person's original testimony, even in the victim's original testimony, they said that they went through with the like, you know, with the sexual interactions because they didn't want to get rejected, which alone is consent, right? A lot of people are probably going to like shift their eyes at that and be like, oh, but the power dynamics, oh, but the coercion. Simply put, there was no power dynamics. If there was a sort of coercion, it would be incredibly difficult to prove by either party. And based on the wording of the original testimony, given the fact that they literally said they went through with it because they wanted to get it over with and they didn't want to get rejected, that is consent, right? If you like somebody because of their reputation and because of their status, and you go through with something because you like somebody because of their reputation, because of their status, and then you feel uncomfortable with it after the fact, while it might be a little bit disgusting, that is not rape. That is not abuse. You could look at it and shift your eyes at it and be like, yeah, that's bad, but it's not rape. And it's not abuse. I have to double down on that. I have to like make that very, very clear. Because a lot of people will talk about, will say anything is rape. They will literally say just about anything is rape with these like very broad standards. And when you start utilizing very broad standards like this, you can call just about anything rape. You can call, you know, mutual hookups at bars rape under these standards. You could call, you know, a hookup with your partner without conversing between each other rape with those standards. You could call, you know, you could call like just somebody going to the club, getting drunk with the express purpose of like having drunk sex rape, when it simply isn't. There are circumstances where you could argue that it could have been coerced rape or something like that, but circumstances like that, like those, are incredibly specific and need to have like a lot of like factors play in before they could even be considered rape. But anyways, I would have liked for him to address more like, you know, the allegations more. He didn't really do that. The response was overall fairly decent. In regards, you know, as you know, it was decent in pointing out the motives. It was decent in pointing out the motives that KP had, and how these allegations could have been platformed, you know, from a vindictive place, obviously meant as a smear job. But he doesn't really say anything in regards to the victim themselves, which I find really concerning. But I guess we'll see. Maybe the victim will come out with more information. Maybe they'll say more. Honestly, it's a 50-50 split. It's a 50-50 split because he's still open to, like, you know, get slammed. He's still open to get slammed. But if he did a good enough job here to, like, you know, to like make these people shit themselves, even if anything did happen, which is very, very unlikely, even if anything did happen, it's going to be borderline impossible for victims to speak out because like due to this response and the way that KP, you know, handled the situation, which led into this response, any victim with any like realistic story worth believing is just going to immediately get shot down because of, you know, the skepticism that has, you know, reached boiling point levels right? Record high levels because of this botchery. It's just going to be impossible to like take any allegation seriously.